All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Rex Bear Leak Project, how the heck are you? Super excited for today's opportunity. I have a guest that has been following the paranormal, UFO evidence, the Bigfoot phenomenon, also the small people and lost civilizations now for quite some time. You should check out the website. The website is fascinating. I've got the link in the video description box. Skyships over Cashiers. That's the most unique name. Skyships over Cashiers. I'm almost thinking about, people working at a 7-Eleven or something, and all of a sudden you got a bunch of flying saucers going over them, and they say, wow, that looks a little bit more exciting than working down here, going and traveling space. But some of the images that I'm looking at here are fantastic, and the work that you do, the reporting that you do is incredible. You've got dozens, if not hundreds, of documents and links and images that cover your work. And I'm just really excited about this opportunity. Thank you for being a guest here on the Leak Project, Mary. How the heck are you?
You do a lot of good things. I'm very impressed with what you do.
Thank you. Checks in the mail.
All right.
I paid her to say that, folks. So this is, really, what a treat, because I'm on your website right now and I'm looking at the photos, and the first link that I clicked on, lights over Quebec. I'm just thinking to myself, wow, this is pretty neat. Is it a portal? Is it the sun and the way that the camera is reflecting off the sun? I don't know, but it's certainly an incredible image. And we'll look at some of these, but the UFO one really caught my attention as well. And then you've got an image where it's evidence of a UFO landing field. And that was something that was taken in Tennessee, August 18th of last year, right?
That's correct.
And you were there?
No, but I know the man who took the pictures, and I spoke with him in person. He's in a very interesting place because a lot of unusual stories happen in the area that he lives in. And
okay.
So when something unusual happens, he lets me know. I actually ran into him at a convention in Gatlinburg, and he told me about that story then. I said, okay, let's sit down for a minute. Let me get the whole story on it.
Well, I want to get into the details in a minute, but before we do, I would like to also give a shout out to one of my sponsors. This podcast is brought to you in part by TradeLikeAGenius.com. Folks, if you want to check out the ultimate Apex algorithms, and if you want to see a really good opportunity on how to be successful out of the convenience of your own home, you will get trade alerts via emails on a daily basis. Now, whether you're into cryptos, whether you're into gold, silver, miners, stocks, all of the above, if there's an opportunity there, it's definitely good for you. And one of the things I wanted to bring up is a lot of people are concerned about the markets and all the turmoil. Well, oftentimes, if you're a trader and you let the algorithms do the work for you, it can be a good thing for you in trading anyway. And it's a great way to see huge gains in a very short time. So check it out, TradeLikeAGenius.com. Let them know Leak Project sent you. The non-bundled items, if you use the code WINTER, you can get up to 55% off. And that's just a quick opportunity I wanted to let you all know about. And Mary, if we could, first of all, I want to know about.
I want to tie into your commercial.
Yeah, please.
I had a story a couple of years back about a man who's been buying up all sorts of property here in North Carolina, and it's in the old gold mining region of North Carolina. And he's just bought up a whole lot of territory. Well, that part I've already written about and I already know about. But since then, I just heard, I think maybe no more than 2 days ago, that he is as interested in the quartz crystals as he is the gold. I don't know how I'm going to follow up in this story. Supposedly, he wants the quartz crystal. He uses that to trade with the aliens. Now, go figure. I don't know how in the world I can confirm that, but if I can, I certainly will.
Now, that's a story right there.
It is, but I can't print it or go further with it unless I can get some concrete information.
Wow. Quartz crystals.
You got to remember that I am, at one point in my life, I was a newspaper editor. So there's a part of me that is very skeptical, a part of me that has to have the proof. So I hear a lot of things that I can't put on the website because I still go by those newspaper rules, and you have to have something concrete to back it up. So I'm giving you one of those leads that I will have to follow up on. I don't know if I'll get anywhere with it, but it ties in with your sponsor.
Oh, that's perfect. Once again, folks, I paid her to say that. Perfect timing. Well, this is really neat. So really, first thing I want to know though is how did you get into this?
It depends on what subject you're going to deal with. The website.
Let's talk about the website.
In 2008, I got interested in little people before that, but it started when a friend of mine up in Cashiers, which is a mountaintop small community that's very, very busy in the summertime, and it gets quiet in the wintertime. And I got a call from her, and she said, "You can't believe the photo my little 8-year-old just got on her camera." And I went up there to see it because she was so excited about it. So I got to see it on the cell phone right after it was taken. And she had been out taking pictures of the sky, just snapping it. And the reason why she was doing it was because the night before, a UFO had hovered over their house. And so she just knew something special was happening in the sky. When they got home, there was a perfect saucer-shaped UFO right smack in the middle of the sun. So you could not see it with your bare eye, but as in so many cases, the camera will pick it up. And so that was what got us started. Between that and all the sightings that we kept seeing over that town. At first, we thought we were just going to be reporting on UFOs in the Cashers area, and it's certainly grown far beyond that. But that's how it started.
Okay. And then when you started to research the small people or the little people,
that was before that. I learned about that in about 2000. And at the time, I knew nothing about little people. I kind of dismissed it all as some kind of a, I don't know, Indian legend. I didn't give it much credibility. And there was an elderly man in our community he's now passed away, who was very well respected. He was a World War II hero. He had been a pastor in the area for like at least 40 years. And he said, no, they were real. And that when he was a young man right after World War II, he was helping with the construction at Western Carolina University. And they would find these little tunnels in red clay wherever they were digging new structures. And the tunnels were always the same. They were square cut with an arched top, typically 2.5 feet across and maybe 3.5, 4 feet high. And whenever they were putting in sewage lines or building new buildings or putting in the stadium, they would run into these. So there was a whole network of these little tunnels throughout the place where we now have Western Carolina University. And it's kind of in a valley surrounded by mountains. There's a whole lot more to the story, but that is how I got hooked. And he began to connect me with other old timers. Most of them were in their 80s, who had worked on construction projects. So I, for a while there, was spending my Saturdays interviewing these elderly men around their kitchen tables. And the reason I did the book was because nobody had recorded this information. And just because of their age, I knew they weren't going to be around for very long. And I originally just took the interviews and posted them like an academic paper just to preserve the information. But then I began to dig in and find a whole lot more information. And it became a book.
So, Mary, we were talking a little bit off the air, but this is just an incredible matrix sync, because just a couple of days ago, I got some academic papers that showed reports from the early 1800s of these graveyards in Tennessee of the little people. And one of them in particular was between 75,000 and 100,000 of these little people that were mummified and put in a particular position. And it reminded me of some of the Egyptian mummies, but this discovery combined with folklore and legends and the research that I'm doing out here in the Four Corners area about the small people and the pygmies. And it seems as if there's an entire civilization that has been erased from our history. This is absolutely huge. And the amount of people that lived that were this size and their capabilities and just the information that we should know about, it seems like has been intentionally covered up. And I think I have an idea why, but it really bothers me that has taken place. So it's really good to meet researchers like you and have these matrix things come together, because I think it adds to the wow factor about
Let me tie that together even more. I've kind of gotten over it, but I was really upset with the local university. They were sitting right on this gold mine of archaeological information. They actually had found skeletons and skulls of little people. At first, they were just dismissed as child skulls from, let's say, the Indian mounds or the Cherokee mounds. But one high school teacher went and picked one up one day because it was sitting on a professor's desk. And she said, this isn't a child's skull. It has all its wisdom teeth. Now, that skeleton and that skull, plus the skeletons of two giants with 6 toes, were in the forensic storage lab at this university. They would never talk about it. And I figured that the reason they wouldn't talk about it was, number one, it would destroy the whole history that the traditional academia has been promoting. And number two, they didn't want to stop their construction projects because that university has been growing quite a bit. And so if they run into relics, they have to stop at least for a while. And so I had one, let's see, when I first posted something on the website years ago now, I was contacted by a former student. And he said that when he was a student, he and some of his buddies were down by the river, and there's a river that runs through there. And they saw the head of security walking by with something about the size of a shoebox. Well, the security guy wasn't being very smart, because when they asked him or got into a conversation with him, he said it was one of the little skeletons they'd found when they were doing one particular construction project. He was taking it over to a ATV, what do you call it? All-terrain vehicle park or whatever, to bury or rebury it. So they would avoid any, forced stopping of their project. So it's interesting, when you start to post stuff, you begin to get more and more information from people.
As a society, you would think that if something like this was discovered, you would have an opportunity to share it with the world, especially with the way things are connected via internet now. But still, the only way you're going to get this information is you're going to have to dig for it. And then I guess it's an extra treasure when you find it because you're working for it, but it's really something that should be shared with everybody. And it's so much bigger than just one project. And I wonder how advanced they really were. And are they still here to a certain extent? Have you ever?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, I do believe that they have existed. And the title of my book that I did about it was Cherokee Little People Were Real. Well, I did the initial research on that starting in 2000. 17 years later, we get a photo that looks like it may be a little person. And that's one that I right now, I don't know how to get to it. Maybe if you type in, I don't know. Anyhow, people that I know that live on a mountain ridge not far from where I live, they're way at the top. It's a 1-lane dirt road to get to their place. And they had a game cam set up by their road into their home. And a bird had triggered it. And off in the distance, you can see a figure against a tree. Now, the couple, they debated among themselves whether it was a spirit or whether it was a real little human or what it was. And they finally decided to share it with me. And what I did was I increased the exposure. And so anything that was alive would turn magenta red. And then I compared that to ghost pictures. The ghost will not go to magenta, but this little being over in the woods went to magenta, which indicated it was something that was very much alive. And the picture was snapped in a hot summertime in August of 2017. And so it looks like the little person is either without clothes or with minimal clothing. And it's not real clear, but it's clearer than a lot of Bigfoot pictures. I can, state it that way. So anyhow, I found that very, very interesting. And then again, after the book, I met a man who lives on the, essentially the North Carolina, Tennessee border. And he says he has little people living on his land. And I did go there along with Evelyn Gordon, who helps me out with this website. And there was lots of evidence that they still exist underground there.
Now, if you look at we were also talking about the UFOs that crashed in Roswell and Aztec, and we looked at the declassified files that are available through even the FBI's website that talk about these saucers that crashed. They found these people inside, and the only thing that differentiated them from us is their size. They were about 3 feet tall. They were often described as wearing metallic clothing, having perfect teeth, and so I'm wondering if some of these civilizations of the small people, were they just ancient, were they just using older technologies, bows and arrows, arrowheads, stuff like that. And there's a lot of stories about some of the weapons that they had back in the day. They're tough little people, literally. But did they have a civilization? Have you found any information about these little people being highly advanced?
According to some of the Cherokee, they learned things from the little people. The little people were here before the Cherokee came to the mountains of Western North Carolina. Originally, and I don't know how far back this goes, the Cherokee originated in the Great Lakes region and then came down here. And when they first came to this region, they would notice these little gardens, but there were no people around. And then they eventually saw these little people that they called the moon people, because they would only come out at night. They would come out and tend the garden and take the produce back underground. So that was the first name that the Cherokee gave them. But they referred to them as being a source of information.
The moon people, that might have been.
Now they were described as having larger eyes, which could be explained in two ways. One, they could be aliens. Two, if you live underground all the time, your eyes are going to get over time probably bigger just to absorb more light.
Yeah, absolutely. And then are they connected with the ant people that saved the Hopi in any way that you know of?
We kind of get stumbled up on the terms, and you have to wonder if they might be one and the same, but the terminology is totally different. I was out on the Lakota Sioux Indian Reservation out in South Dakota a year ago, October. And I met a woman, she was 29 at the time. Her grandfather had been a medicine man. Her older brother was a medicine man, and she seemed to have like intuitive abilities. And she told the story of taking her grandmother out to the creek or out to the river to fish. And so she and her cousins set her up on a chair to fish, and then they went down to play further down the river. And they saw something out of the corner of their eye, that like something that went under the water. And then when they went back, the grandmother had caught a fish and it was about to get away. So the kids are plunging back in to catch the fish for her. And they see these little footprints going up from where they had been in the water up the embankment. And they found a little cave. And the cave had miniature bows and arrows, miniature drums, miniature, what do you call it? The thing you put the arrows in, quiver.
Uh-huh.
And so they had found all these things, and the boys took that back and showed it to their grandfather. He said, "You need to put that back. It's going to really upset the little people." And it did upset the little people, and they were, killing the Lakota people's chickens and things like that for a while. And I actually could understand that. If you're a little person, how are you going to terrorize people enough to leave you alone? And so if you start killing their livestock, maybe they'll leave you alone. And it apparently worked, and everything went back to the way it always was. So that's a recent story. So they are very much alive out on that Lakota place. And, they found concrete evidence of it. So I don't know what to tell you. I think they still exist in small numbers.
This is exciting. And I'm smiling from one ear to the next. And the synchronicity here is wonderful. Share some more stories, if you would, about the small people, the little people, and those you've interviewed in reference to them.
Well, another story that kind of chuckles me, and this is the man who lives on the Tennessee-North Carolina border. And he said that he lives on beautiful land, at least 200 acres, overlooking a river. And so he has part of his land in rolling pastures, and the rest is all natural wooded areas. And that's where the little people live. And he and generations before him have always been like in communication and protective of the little people. His family seems to have a little bit of Indian roots in them, and there seems to be a bond there. So he will leave cards, little 3x5 cards out in a place where he knows they go, and he'll ask a simple question and he'll leave a pencil there. They can print in English, very simple. They rather communicate telepathically, but they are able to also write when necessary. But anyhow, the cute story is that he had hired some people temporarily to help put in fencing or posting on his pasture land. And one day he saw them just taking off, flying like crazy. They didn't come back for their pay. They didn't. They just took off like something was really wrong. He did run into them later in town and asked why they didn't come and at least get their money. And they asked questions, and they apparently thought he was some kind of a wizard or something like that, because they had heard the little people singing in the fog. And the man told me that that is a common thing when there's fog. They can go out and there's this tree at the top of the hill, and they will dance up there and they will sing up there. And it had spooked these workers completely. But I went up to the top of that hill, which is a bit of a hill, believe me. And little people don't weigh very much, so they're not going to make big impressions in the dirt. But we did find two little footprints where the dancing had gone on, and you could also see where the grass had been kind of stomped down just a little bit. So that's as close as I've come to actually seeing evidence myself of the little people.
The leprechauns.
Leprechauns, yeah.
Do you think they're interdimensional?
But, for the most part, they seem to be really real. I mean, they seem to be living here on the earth just like you and I are. They have the ability to communicate telepathically, and I think we humans are the only ones that have lost that ability. I think it's an ability we all used to have. Whether they can vanish and disappear, I can't say that with certainty. But they live like very real people. Now, you're a very inquisitive mind, so I'll jump into something I would not normally bring up. The man who owns this land is I'm going to go blank on it. He's part of a tribe that's not very common, and they have white features. They were used as translators for different tribes, and they have a bond with these little people who are totally different than the little people where I live here in North Carolina. They dress more like Europeans. He said their outfits are a lot like the lederhosen that the Germans wear, and the shirts are like the double-breasted buttons, ones like this that the old cavalry used to wear. Now, here's the part that's interesting. When I was doing the initial research on this, I stumbled on a brand new research project by a man who is considered the authority on Southeastern Indians. And in this brand new report that at that time, he said there was a major flood in Ireland or part of Europe back, I don't know, maybe 2000, a bunch of years ago. Without my notes in front of me, I can't remember all the details. And that the people had fled and they had ended up where the Savannah River is. And we hear about the leprechauns all the time. So if they had a big flood in Ireland and they came across in ships and landed in Savannah, perhaps some of those little people came with them because they are dressed like Europeans, not like the Cherokee. And this was within a couple hours drive of two locations, two totally different kind of little people.
And to keep them out of the public and to stay out of the public eye, they are probably doing that if they're not interdimensional with their telepathic capabilities. Because if they could read people's minds, that know when somebody was coming in the house,
right,
or when
they could totally avoid them. Right. And he did show me, he showed me where the entrance to the underground facility was, or where they live. I didn't get in it, but I saw the entrance to it. And there was this little narrow path that went to it. It would be more narrow than if humans walked that path all the time. And then the man pointed out these little square impressions along the road or along the path. And he said the old people among the little people will walk with canes that are square cut. And you could see where those imprints were going to the entrance of the cave, which I was able to see for myself too. So it was a very interesting little expedition.
Oh, that's neat. Now, so in the Four Corners region, underneath the Archuleta Mesa, There is all sorts of mystery. You know, is there a base under there? Is it an ET base that's working with our own military? There's and a lot of that is, you know, definitely great questions. Do we have some physical evidence? I don't. I mean, I've seen the images of Phil after he passed, which it looks like something happened to him. It doesn't look like he took his own. It looks like something. Anyway, I don't even want to get into it, but it looked like they were making a statement. That's the guy that came out and started talking about what was underneath it. But the locals in Dulce, a lot of the locals have seen things out there. And one person in particular that I met, his grandma used to talk about the small people out there. And they think, at least according to what I understood, that it was those small people that were doing the cattle mutilations and affecting a lot of the area. So if you look at some of these cattle mutilations in the precision, it's like surgical precision, laser precision, what they remove from the cattle, and the no blood and no tracks. And so have you heard or done any research about the small people in this region, in the Four Corners region, or do you know anything about that?
First of all, from what I have pieced together, I would never think the little people would be responsible for those mutilations. And they're either being done by aliens of a different sort, not like the little people, or they may be done in conjunction with some aspects of our military. But I would not think the little people would do that.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate that. And
I mean, you can blame, I mean, if you tell me reptilians did it, I'll believe it. If you tell me certain types of grays did it, I'll believe it. But it would be a lot to convince me a little people did it.
Well, maybe, you know, like you said, there's different types of little people. There's a bunch of them, right? I mean, we're talking about the ones that were in the craft from 1950 that were little people that had, you know, that were about 3 feet tall, and we don't know where they came from. And they seem to be of peaceful nature. But what's interesting is I'm wondering about the cattle mutilations. If they were going out there and testing these cattle, maybe it had more to do with the environmental pollutions. Because if you look into Project Gasbuggy, that was a nuclear detonation close to Dulce that was done 4,200 feet underground, and it was supposed to have been done in the public light. They said they did it for peaceful reasons to get natural gas deposits, essentially. Well, were they maybe doing something more sinister? Maybe did they find something down there and they were blowing it up, or just with all the testing that they were doing, these small people with highly advanced technologies, could they be going out and testing the cattle to see what kind of radiation exposure? Because the cattle are eating the grass on the ground, and you know, it's a perfect test to see what would be going on. And then maybe they're doing something else with the genetics, but maybe it's not like in a sinister fashion. We look at it as sinister, obviously, and the people that are losing their cattle, heck yeah, they're looking at it as sinister. But maybe there's just a deeper reason to it, that these beings are wanting to know what kind of exposure to certain pollutants are in that area. Have you considered that, or maybe I'm off on this?
I would tend to think that it was being done for genetic information, that they need genetic material to do whatever they are doing. I think that a lot of genetic experimentation has been done on this planet long before you and I were here, and it continues on. So that would be at the top of my list for what I think is going on.
Yeah,
now let me give you some more things. When I first met the man with the little people in Tennessee, I said, if they ever would like to talk to me, I would love to get their information and put it on the website. It was a long time after that, and he said they have information to give you, and we have posted that on the website, and they've told it. They through this man told us quite a bit. And one of the things that they fear is a type of aliens that they call the dominators. And they say they are truly evil, and that the dominators regard Earth as the farm where they get their food supply. And according to them and other sources, I have checked this out a little bit more because you don't want to believe stories like this from just one source. And there has been an exchange with certain aspects of our military or government. So for, let's say, X number of farm-fed humans, they will provide certain kinds of technology. It's an exchange. We've heard similar things that go back to the time of Eisenhower, where there were exchange agreements that were made. But this was the most extreme thing that I heard, and the little people are scared to death of them.
The Dominators. Now,
that's the name that the little people give them, is the Dominators. I don't know anybody else who's used that term.
That's spooking me out.
Oh yeah, that's spooky. I agree.
That's pretty doomy right there. Jeez. But did they describe what they look like?
Which they?
Do you have anybody? I mean, what do the Dominators look like?
I'm not. It sounds, from the verbal descriptions I've gotten, it sounds like they're more like the reptilian type of creature.
Okay. And you said you heard from two different sources.
That's the strongest source. But then if you go back and you do your research with Eisenhower, when the aliens were first making contact with our government, there was one group that came in that wanted to, if we as a species would give up our nuclear weapons, they would give us all sorts of things to help, develop technology in a peaceful way. Because World War II had just ended, Eisenhower wanted nothing to do with that because he was still in a mindset. So when the other group came in and said, we will give you more technology in exchange for such and such, he went along with that. Now there's a number of articles and things you can read. I can't quote them right now, but regarding Eisenhower and the ETs.
Wow, very interesting. So the small people, sounds like they've been around for a long time. They're very smart. They know how to fit in, and geez, maybe there's a lot of them inside of these mines and stuff too. Because if they can see, if they were inside of the earth, essentially like caves and stuff like that, a lot of abandoned mines, it might be a good place to find some of them.
I don't know. This entrance that I saw was very small. It was in a wooded area. It was rocks around it, and it was a small entranceway. I could not have gone into it.
Now, you're also doing some great research in the Bigfoot phenomenon, and you've actually put a great book out, Bigfoot Beyond the Footprints. Tell us about it.
Over time, I had done a lot of stories on the website about Bigfoot, and I think I reached about 70, and I realized that this was spread over in the archives for many years, and I needed to get it together so somebody could read it all together. So that was one reason I did it. Number two is I got sick and tired of hearing about Bigfoot footprints and Bigfoot howling and Bigfoot, taking lumber or tree branches and whacking trees. And I thought there's so much more to them. And I had found that out from many of my research projects and many of my interviews with people. They have families. They make friends with certain humans. They have rescued humans. There's just a very, let's say, human side to Bigfoot. And I thought people needed to know that.
So with that being said, if you could share some of those stories with us, I remember something last year, I think, where a child went missing a cold night, and then in the woods, and then I think it was in Ohio or something.
Yeah, we did that. It actually was here in North Carolina, and I did do a story on it. It's on the website, and it's in the book. And basically, in January, this little 2.5, 3-year-old boy was lost out in the woods for, I think it was 3 days and 2 nights. Well, in January, that's pretty awful. And when they finally found him tangled in like a briar or, tangled in thorns or whatever, he was perfectly okay. And he said that a bear had kept him company, or he didn't use that word, but he called the creature a bear. Well, the bears in January are in hibernation. And then I found out from a bear researcher out at one of the universities, I believe in Montana, and he said bears would never, ever act like that. They would never, be protective of a little human. And so Then I contacted one of the Bigfoot research organizations that keeps track of sightings. And there had been sightings in counties all around where this little boy had been lost for 3 days. When you put that all together, it sounds like the bear was a Bigfoot, not a real bear. But the little boy wouldn't know any word but bear.
I did a podcast on that, and that was my assumption that it was some type, it was a Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, whatever the proper term is, Harry from Harry and the Hendersons. I think that's maybe what he was like, pretty peaceful. And the only thing that, so there was two things that people said. There was the bear story, and then there was also somebody else made a comment that there was something just miles away about how there are these people playing like Dungeons and Dragons or something like that. So somebody speculated it was, or something along that line. So somebody speculated it was somebody.
Can I use my bad language, what I call my Detroit language? That's crap.
Hello. Yeah. Hello. Exactly. I mean, so that's what I'm saying. So I'm looking for so what would make a child say that a bear or something like a bear, like a fuzzy person protected him, and then like there's no tracks, there's no bears, he's safe, all of the above, and then the sightings that you saw, combining that together, I think that's a very remarkable story. That's a really neat story.
Yeah, you came to the same conclusion that I did. It just, before I could put it on the website, I had to do some of this other research, and thus the quoting of the bear expert and checking with the Bigfoot sightings in the area, and learning that the bear would not be running around during hibernation season. And so
now what did the eyewitness accounts say this being looks like?
The Bigfoot?
Yeah.
They don't all look the same. And if you're familiar with Dr. Ketchum's work with the DNA, you may or may not be familiar with it. She did a major study of at least 100 different samples from Bigfoot. And what they found was that the maternal side is human. The paternal side cannot be linked to any known species. So that is the background of a Bigfoot. With that in mind, they don't all look the same. One gal who had contact with Bigfoot since she was a child and is so good at communicating with them that she was invited over to Russia to do, I can tell you about that later, to do exploration there. She said they have different hair color. Their skin can be anything from white to tan to brown to black. So there's quite a bit of variation from one to the other. Some have lots of hair on their face, and some don't. She got into, you can't group them together. She said they're unique. They have a reputation of being smelly. And she said two things. One, that the hygiene from one to the other can vary quite a bit. And some are very clean and some aren't. And I found that very interesting. And then I combined that with a guy that I interviewed out in Texas, near I think it's the Sam Houston Forest or Wildland or whatever. And there are Bigfoot in that area. And he said, growing up, he was always puzzled because in the ponds and in the water tanks, they would find this kind of greasy, bubbly stuff. He never could figure out what it was. And a woman who's an expert of some kind said that he had a lot of yellow root growing on his land, and that you can take yellow root and grind it up and soak it up and you can clean with it. Well, I know from the little bit of herb background that I have, which is small, but enough to know that yellow root is an antibiotic. And so in the very place where this man had seen Bigfoot all of his life, there was the Bigfoot were using the yellow root as a way of cleaning themselves up. So they're not always dirty. And they may also have the ability to be a little bit like a skunk and use that to repel people. I don't think there's a simple answer to everything. There can be multiple reasons for things.
So you're bringing a real light approach to Bigfoot and the Sasquatch and the Yeti, like a Harry and the Hendersons kind of approach. And I wonder, because last night I watched for the first time a film by David Paulides. Where he's like the researcher on 411, where he does a lot of investigating missing people in national parks and hunters and stuff. And I'm going to have an opportunity to speak with him hopefully in a few days. And he said, before I talk to you, I want you to watch this video so we can have a dialogue, not just a monologue, kind of like what you and I are doing. We're having a conversation, right? And I think it's great. This is fantastic.
It's much more fun that way.
You're blowing my mind, Mary. You're blowing my mind. But he watching the video, like a lot of these hunters that would end up missing, the way that they ended up missing, what I thought to myself was, and it sounds kind of like a joke, but talk about truth and humor. I thought to myself, vegan aliens are hunting hunters. Like, are they mad at these hunters? Because a lot of these people they're lifelong hunters. They seem like good people, right? They seem like wonderful people. And then one day they go out in the woods with their family. They get lost from their family, not even that far from their family, and they just vanish. They just disappear. And one of the descriptions of these people heard was this noise. It was just like this whoosh, and it was like someone said it sounded like a trap. I'm thinking to myself, well, if Bigfoots or some of these beings, like you said, they're not all the same. If some of them are interdimensional, or if they're really good at evading capture, what if they were like, they didn't like some of these people hunting, so that was their way of retaliating, and then they would drop them back off in a place that had been searched multiple times just to mess with people or something like that. Just things that were going through my head. It might be more technological based. I think there might be some type of technology that's used, but I'm wondering if there's been cases where Bigfoot has gotten tired of these hunters that are out there with high powered rifles and not really, there's no sport in that, so any thoughts on that?
I think most Bigfoot will go out of their way to avoid people. If they can't avoid them, then they will try to scare them off, and they can do that by their howling. They're known for throwing rocks at people, but not hitting them. They will throw them around them. And the people who've had that experience that I've talked to have not been hit. So first they avoid them, and then they try to scare you off. The only stories that I personally know where people have been hurt or really seriously threatened have been hunters. And they have been hunters that have been aiming their guns at these Bigfoot. Well, I don't know of any other ones who've gotten in trouble. So if you start if somebody starts aiming a gun at you or your wife, what are you going to do?
Wow, this is fascinating. I really like the.
I did go to a lecture with Paulides not too long ago at the exhibition Bigfoot in northern Georgia, and I specifically asked about what I'd heard, that he was blaming these missing people episodes on the Bigfoot. And he said he had never said that. So you can ask him some other way, see if he gives you the same answer.
Oh yeah. Clearly I wasn't saying that he had said that. I was just taking notes and I was questioning, like those were things that were going through my mind. He's an incredible investigator. And it was a fascinating documentary because there's so many possibilities. My conclusion was, I think that there could be some kind of, not in all cases, but I think there's some kind of technology that's being used. That's almost like an it's almost like a frequency technology, an interdimensional technology that you can come in and out of a dimension, or you can come in and out of, like, okay, you're here now, and the next minute you're over a river.
People talk all the time about portals. And there are quite a few people that think the Bigfoot are able to go in and out of portals. I've not seen that. I don't know how to verify it, but it's commonly believed they have that ability.
Right. It is. But that could be pure speculation. I mean, there's no evidence that I know of, and if there is, it's pretty minimal. So that's fascinating. I'd like to know more though about the Bigfoot book that you put together. Tell us some more about this.
I'll mention this woman that I alluded to earlier, and her name is Robin McCrae. She has been in contact with big people, since she was very young. And one of her stories is that she was invited to go over to Siberia by Dr. Igor Burtsev, who is the head of, let's see if I can get this right, the International Hominology Institute, I think, in Siberia. And all because of the Irish, this happened. This is an aside. There is a group called the Paddy Power, or anyhow, they're a betting group in Ireland. And so they bet £100 on a £1 bet if anybody could find evidence of Bigfoot. So he and the doctor, I'll call him Igor, Dr. Igor invited Robin and other researchers and scientists and some of the media to a very active cave in Siberia. And I guess they won the bet. But in this cave, I've got pictures that Dr. Igor took, and we have one of a big footprint. And then we have one of a nesting, a birthing nest. And inside this large cave, there is a smaller place. And there's all this soft, I don't know, vegetation there. And this woman is able to telepathically communicate with the Bigfoot, and they explain that that was a birthing nest and that their females went there to give birth. And just beyond this birthing nest, and I've got a picture of Dr. Igor in it so you can get the true size of it, there is like another little cave right behind it. And what happens is, like, if there are older children, they are kept in that smaller cave behind the birthing nest so they can't run around until the birth is over. And all of this was explained, and I've got pictures of Dr. Igor and the nest. And you talk about synchronicities. Not after she had been over there, seeing the birthing nest, she had a Bigfoot appear in the woods behind her house. Now, at first she thought it was a human, and she went out to see what was going on. And there was a mother Bigfoot standing by the tree line, and Robin was able to figure out how tall she was because she made a note of where she came on a tree, and she went out later and measured it. So this mother was 9.5 feet tall, and she had a little tiny baby by Bigfoot standards. And I did a ratio. I compared a human mother to a newborn and the Bigfoot to the size of her little one, and it would have been the size of a newborn human. And the little guy would run up to a tree, and he'd go up about 2 or 3 feet and then climb down. He'd go to the next tree, run up and come down. And the mother Bigfoot was always right behind him to make sure that he was okay. And when he got too far away, she went and got him and brought him back, and he started the whole little tree thing all over again. And because Robin wasn't, the Bigfoot trusted Robin enough to let her see the little baby. And that's the second story that I've gotten. The other one about a baby being seen by a human. And there's a man who lives also in another part of Western North Carolina. And he began to have Bigfoot on his land when other areas around him were being logged. And so the Bigfoot were losing their territory, and they moved into his territory. And he's a big old country boy who likes to eat fried food and piles of mashed potatoes, but he's a big-hearted guy. And so he befriended these creatures. And I believe it was on Christmas Eve of December 16th, a baby Bigfoot was born, a little girl, and the parents let him see the baby, which I thought was a wonderful Christmas Eve present for him and for everybody else. But when they begin to trust you, they will be open with you.
Absolutely. And when they see you're genuine, then they want to talk to you more because it's just that connection. And man, I mean, while I'm talking to you, I'm also looking at your website. I got to show this real quick because your website is just amazing. I mean, I had no idea how good your website is until recently when the first time I went on it. But this is, folks, take a look at this. So this is just a few of the links of many, but I started scrolling down here, and this is what caught my attention right here. Antarctica formation like ruins that are on other continents, like similar to the 200,000-year-old mines in South Africa that seem to have a certain resonance. But this is Antarctica. How did you find this?
A lot of things are found just by using Google Earth and kind of just scanning things. And every once in a while you get lucky.
Wow, this is great. Oh, this is neat. Look at that. And
And
then,
wait, stop right there. Scroll
yeah.
right here. Whenever possible, I give people the coordinates so they can go to Google Earth and find things for themselves, because we have so many hoaxers who are doing Photoshop games because they get their jollies out of fooling people. And so on many of the things, when I find them, I give the coordinates.
Oh, this is great. Now, do you think that Bigfoot was much more active before maybe the previous cataclysm or some type of event? Like, do you think they could have been walking around like us 12,000 years ago, 120,000 years ago?
Um, I get different. I don't know. Everybody's a theory on how long they've been around. Um, since they are a mixture genetically of human and something else, it sounds to me like they could not have been existing before humans.
Okay.
Otherwise, where would the human genetic part come from?
Hmm.
Unless somebody's up there with a grand experiment in the sky and these things can be started anytime they want to. I don't know.
Some geneticists, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like the Anunnaki.
The wild ones up in the sky.
Hey, the Anunnaki, they're pretty good geneticists. They were playing with genetics back in the day.
Since you mentioned them, I need to say this. There has been talk for years now about the planet, the 12th planet or Planet X, and it can be seen primarily from South Africa, from Antarctica. And we have a section, if you scroll it down for people, it's called Deep Throat Testimonies. So I got one of those. That's people who are in high places that can't reveal who they are. And this particular person worked across from the Johnson Space Center in Houston, and had just recently read Sitchkin's book at the time about the 12th planet. And the person I call it the person Whistler, and Whistler brought up the subject with an astrophysicist at NASA. And the person, I can't quote it right now, but I do better on the written work, said that it is not a planet. It doesn't behave like a planet. It's more likely to be a spaceship because it will appear and disappear in different places. They have a hard time keeping track of it. And for the most part, it can only be seen from Antarctica, and then that's an on and off thing. It may very well be the reason why so many big shots around the world were flooding down to Antarctica just a couple of years ago. But for somebody within NASA who's an astrophysicist saying that that person and the co-workers believed it was more likely to be a spacecraft than a planet, it does not behave like a planet.
One thing I'd like to ask is, when somebody makes that type of claim, do you have any way to validate that? Or, I mean, could it just be some trickster playing games with you saying that that's who they are when really they're like me?
I had met this person quite some time ago in person when I was doing another story, because on the person's land, there are giant arrows that are too big for a human to really be able to use. And so I did a story on that. I had gotten to know this person over time. And so it was over time that she decided to open up with me. And it was over time that I got to know this person. So there was reason to trust the person. When you meet people face to face, you're in their house, you meet their family, you get a real sense of whether they're being truthful with you.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, so you knew this person
before they ever shared this story with anybody.
Wow. Okay. Now that's pretty cool, because there's been a lot of people that have made very big claims and, to have these specific titles and positions, and you look into who they are and they're
nobody,
wacko.
Or they're made up. Right.
They're out of their minds, literally. Yeah. I mean, right. I'm crazy, but I can at least tell you I'm in my basement right now, and I do not work for NASA. I'm a conspiracy scientist, and yes, I am literally crazy, right. folks. So right. That's why you like me.
Whenever possible, I like to meet the people in person. And with the book that I've done called Underground Military Bases Hidden in North Carolina Mountains, I've met these people. I've interviewed them in person, and all of them, for the most part, are either former military and or have some kind of high security clearance. but I don't just take somebody who's sent me an email or called me on the phone. I've met with these people. And it works both ways. They have to believe that they can trust you. When I first came here, I was working at a place where I had a lot of interaction with the public. And there was this couple who came in and they were aware of the website I was doing. And so they would come in very timidly and start conversations about UFOs and about UFOs they'd seen over the parkway and things like of that nature. And finally I said, well, it sounds like you've got some really good stories. Could I interview you? I met them at their camper trailer, and they had been checking me out for months. They wanted to see if they could trust me. So it works both ways. So after months of coming in and just having these casual conversations, they finally decided I was able to be trusted. And the reason they were so concerned was that the woman, who was at the time in her 60s, had kept a secret all of her life. She had been raised in a family where her father was in a very, very high security situation. She and all the family and all the employees of this particular place were under constant surveillance, threatened if they talked about anything that was going on. And she had heard something, more than just heard it, but she knew about stuff that was going on here in North Carolina. And that was the reason she wanted to talk to me. She wanted to come clean and tell her story about an underground facility here in North Carolina. I had never heard of underground facilities here until that couple made contact with me.
Tell us about that.
That's very, very involved. There's a whole lot to it. And before I ever put it into a book form, I got information from at least a dozen other people that would confirm, things that she said. The initial story I put on the website about this facility, it's called PARI, P-A-R-I. It stands for Pisgah Astronomical Research Institute. It can be seen from it can't be seen, but it's immediately west of the Blue Ridge Parkway, where the Devil's Courthouse formation is located. And she said it was city size, it was 6 stories deep, self-sufficient, that they had the ability to wipe people's memories. They had the ability to do different kinds of experiments. They had the ability to be very destructive from what is there. So she just had to get this information out. Well, when I posted the original story, I was contacted again by a man who I had met in person in totally unrelated capacity. I had no idea, but he had a high security clearance, and he wrote something, and I posted it. I put it in the book, and he confirmed everything she said. But I never, ever saw him again because he didn't want to risk being seen with me after that. And he even changed the way that he worded his statement because he didn't want to have any of the fingerprints of his normal way of writing or speaking. So he was absolutely cautious beyond belief, but he felt strongly enough that he wanted to confirm what this woman had provided for us for the website.
Your website now, I'm on the section of underground operations, and you've got link after link after link. I mean, we're talking from Antarctica to, geez, where's this one right here? The one that, let me show you this, folks. Take a look at this. I'm going to do a quick screen share. This is cool. Okay. This is the section underground operations, secret underground tunnels, see how they're made, big booms near secret underground facility, deepest underground laboratory in the USA, new digging at secret underground facility. I mean, this is incredible. You've done a great job compiling all this information. You got the video links. You can just click here as well. Now, is this the one in North Carolina?
This is the PARI Center. It's now, it used to be part of the Department of Defense. It used to be a tracking station for satellites during the Cold War. Then they just kind of pulled out of that, and it is now supposedly just an educational research astronomical place. Well, I call that a capstone cover. I'll give you an example, quoting somebody else besides myself. There were two former Air Force officers who had been researching the Perry facility for, I think they said 5 months before they contacted me. And they felt that something strange was going on there. And one time they went there kind of late in the afternoon, and a place that's supposedly open to the public, that's an astronomy place of education, there was somebody dressed in a SWAT outfit guarding the gate. And it's a really strange place. Sometimes you can drive right in there, and sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's by invitation only. But that's the reason I call it a capstone cover. They pass it off as an astronomical place, and the 6-story structure beneath it is still there. And since then, I've done updates on it. And I was contacted by a man who doesn't live too far from there. And he said there was all sorts of underground vibrations happening. And he wondered, he said something else is going on there. Well, Google Earth came in handy again, and I started looking at it. And since I'd done the original stories, there were 2 huge holes that were covered by tarps, and you could kind of see in the gap between them. And I got pictures of these huge dump trucks and earth moving equipment, and they were taking dirt out of this hole and spreading it over a hill. So every indication between the booming sounds beneath the ground and between all this earth moving was that that facility was being expanded, and that's fairly recent.
The memory wipes, that kind of caught my attention. You know, when you're saying, so what if they did that on a daily basis? What if your job was so secret that every time
they could
you
wipe
left,
your brain at the end of the day? That's an interesting concept. Now, let me tell you something personal on that. I've never gone past the gate because, believe it or not, I was warned I shouldn't go beyond the gate. And because of what I do with the website.
Because you're a researcher and you uncover all this stuff? No.
So anyhow, I really don't want to put my neck on the line. But I've gone there twice with other people in the car, and you begin to feel this weird sensation in your head. The closer you get to it, the more you feel it. It's some kind of electromagnetic something, and every one of us felt it. And then when you go away from it, you don't feel it. I call it people repellent because it makes you feel uncomfortable and you just want to get away from wherever you are.
So it could be some type of frequency generation machine.
Which is easy to do. That's not complicated. They could very easily do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Pick a certain frequency and have the right amplifier to emit the frequency. I would agree with you. Wow. I mean, this is fantastic. I want to show one image, and then we'll wrap this up here in a few minutes. This is from your website, Evidence of UFO Landing Field. I thought this was neat because I was recently at that UFO crash site that was from 70 years ago, and somebody's like, Rex, I thought this was a recent UFO crash site. I'm like, no, but it's still it's a really cool crash site. They found 16 small people in this UFO that was 100 feet across, but it was from 70 years ago. This doesn't look like it's from 70 years ago, Mary.
No.
This was just last year.
Now, before, because I'm sure you're running out of time, and since you're able to pull up the website for me, go to Global Links, the 2013 archives. Scroll way down to the bottom. Just go zip to the bottom. Okay, these are pictures. Like, are we at the bottom of that? Yeah, I guess we are. All right, just go. These are pictures of giant objects near the sun. And I've got lots of photos of, look at this. These are all, that looks like the one on the right there. That looks like some kind of a rocket tower. All of these are bigger than Jupiter, which is our largest planet. And if you scroll back up, I started you at the bottom. If you scroll back up, you'll slow down. Those are some more. These are things that are found around the sun. And this is another thing that came to me very, very strangely. I was contacted by a man who was very limited in his English, who lived in the Netherlands. And he was able to take NASA photos, which anybody could get, but he would clean them up. And then you could see this incredible detail. And those are some examples. I was able to get photos from him in 2013. There's also photos in the 2014 archives of his. And they just don't look like what you think a UFO ought to look like. And they're huge. They're just absolutely huge.
I've seen this one down here at the bottom right, or at least this same outline.
It looks very, very much like, what do they call it? The I don't know. I can't think of it. But
the winged disc.
Yeah.
It's an ancient sign. It looks a lot like
an ancient sign, and I cannot for the life of me think of what it's called right now. It's like the Phoenix.
The Phoenix, yeah, the Thunderbird as well. A lot of people have thought about that being like plasma events that have taken place where these giant plasma bolts come down and it looks like a thunderbolt or I've wondered if those could be planets, and based upon, because I've seen things similar to this, and I thought, okay, is it a planet that's going past the telescope at that time, and because it's limited to quality of the picture,
these are so geometric, and they're so intricate. Like it's intricate. It's not just a shape like this. You can see the different levels of it, and like I said, there's also pictures of other ones in the 2014 archives. And I've not seen things like this anywhere else.
Okay. Yeah, this is fascinating. Let me go to the 2014 here real quick, and we're still in global links. So let me click on the 214 here. Excellent. Okay. And then what am I looking for?
Global links, and then do the 2014 archives.
Ooh, what's this? You got some good stuff in here.
You going to show us so we can see what you're seeing?
Oh, not yet. I'm too excited. I'm looking at it first. Yeah, we pull it up on the screen share. Just got to find the screen share button here. Okay, here we go. Bingo. Okay, so this is where we're starting. Skyships over cashiers, 2014 global links. Giant near Jupiter, UFO giant near Jupiter. That's probably one of the ones you wanted to show me. But
yeah, it is. Click on that one.
Okay. Yeah, here we go.
No, that's not the one. But anyhow, they're in there. Keep going. Scroll down, see if we get to something good. Now keep going. Some of these are so much better. There we go. Look at that one. Back up again.
Oh, right there.
Well, that's good because it shows you the size. There's Jupiter. Now, these are two really weird ones. Look at that. Now, how can you explain those? And these are from NASA photos.
Huh. Looks like a plasma sheath almost.
I don't have words for it.
Oh, wow. You're talking about this and this?
Yeah, both of them are equally weird.
Okay, when I saw those, I just went past because I thought the one on the left was like a light bulb showing a light starting, like the inside of a light bulb. And I thought the one on the right was just a torrid of like a plasma torrid. But
and it's important to realize that these are NASA photos. They may have been enhanced or brightened so we can see them better or cleared up. It's like the man from the Netherlands said it was like dusting and cleaning them to get rid of the interference or the debris so that you could see it more clearly.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I just wanted to go back here again because these are some of those weird anomalies that are picked up via SOHO, right?
Yes.
Okay. So these are SOHO anomalies. And then wasn't this over? Oh, that's over the Australian beach. That was about 6 years ago, huh?
Yeah.
Wow. Look at that. Folks, would you just look at that? Oh, man. It looks like, I wonder if like Project Bluebeam almost, because you got the blue beams underneath it.
I know.
You think that's real, or do you think that could be some type of hologram?
I believe it's real.
Wow. That's neat. That is just fantastic. And then you can click the video right there, folks. So if you go to this website, you want to watch the video, you click the video. You've got the links at the very top here as well. You've got the archives, witness testimonies, how to report sightings. You've got the deep throat testimonies right there, witness testimonies, Bigfoot and ET, global links, Skyship articles, Skyship messages, Skyship photos. Here's the photos section. Oh yeah, look at this. This is a good one. Portal or sun and camera over exposure. This is
by the
neat.
way, we got pictures of something that I dubbed the blue moon, but it's an object that's been seen around the sun since we discovered, I mean, long before that, but we discovered it in 2009. People have gotten pictures of it around the world. And of course, everybody wants to blow things off as a camera flare of some kind. Well, one of these pictures, which was very, very detailed, we took it to a man who helped design the Hubble telescope. He said it was not a lens flare, that it was something else that we had captured. So when you get credibility from somebody with those kind of credentials, it just really helps to prove that what we're seeing is something beyond a phenomena with the camera.
Now, is that on the website here?
Let's see if I can remember where that might be.
I like this one. This is a good one. Whatever this is.
And that was a UFO that was hovering over Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which is known for mind control projects and super soldiers and alien bodies.
The door. The door you can't enter.
One of the men that I interviewed a bunch of years ago, when he was a young man, he's still not old, but he lived near the Wright-Patterson, and he said that they would get, as kids, would go out to the base as close as they could get when they would start seeing beams of light going up from the base, and UFOs would come in when that would happen. And the high school kids knew about it.
Too cool. Well, Mary, what's next for you? Just going to keep doing a lot of updates on the website, doing research and investigating?
That's what I like to do the most. I really enjoy digging in and finding stuff. We've had kind of a quiet time because our webmaster he works for a university, and he went on an extended vacation during December, and he's just getting back into town. So we'll start updating at least by the weekend, I would think.
Well, Mary, thank you so much for the opportunity. I had a great time with you. Maybe we can do it again sometime.
Real quickly, if anybody's interested in the underground bases, that book is called Underground Military Bases Hidden in North Carolina Mountains. And the other one is Cherokee Little People Were Real. If you go to Editor's Corner on the website and scroll, you can find out about the books. And they're available with Amazon. So there's a lot more detail than I certainly could ever touch on in a conversation like we're having.
I'll trade you a tinfoil hat for an autographed book on those underground bases.
Tinfoil hat.
Yeah, check it out. You think I'm joking? I'm not. They even block 5G. These are so cool. These will block EMF radiation. This is, as you can see, it's a tinfoil cap. And check this out. This is the best part. So not only does it look cool, right? Not only does it look amazing.
Okay, I will do that. You email me your address.
I will. And check this out. This in here, this actually blocks EMF radiation. So like, have you heard about the 5G stuff? People are concerned about the 5G, right?
Right.
So I've got EMF detectors that'll test microwave radiation and stuff. This liner inside of here it'll block the low radiation and the high radiation. So when somebody says, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, where's your tinfoil hat? You could say,
I love it. It's a deal. You send me your address.
Yes. All right.
And
awesome.
my address is under Editor's Corner.
Right on. And you'll be able to protect your head from radiation. So next time you go to that location, you won't feel so out of whack because
maybe I'll have to try it again.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
It'd be a good test, actually.
Yeah, it'd be a perfect test. Well, folks, thank you for being here with us. Everybody in the chat loves your website. Just nothing but accolades and kind words. Definitely get those books, folks. And when I get a copy, I'll show it off to you. Be excellent to each other. hit the bell. That way you'll make sure you're getting access to all the live feeds and be the change you want to see.
Take care.
Thank you. You too.